Hey everyone, so first let me say, sorry it took me so long to get this video out, but in between this video and the last, I actually had a lot of life happen. I lost a bunch of my footage, I planned to move, and had a bunch of other stuff, like family fun with weddings and things. But all that said, over that time I have actually made 2 more revisions of the PCB, and today we're going to talk a little bit about that journey and where the project currently stands. So let's get into it. Alright, welcome back guys. If you've not seen the first video, make sure you check that out above. But the TLDR is that I'm absolutely obsessed with the OG Boop65 keyboard, and I really wanted a wireless version for it. So I started making the ZMK powered PCB of it just so that way I could use it fully wirelessly. So now that you're caught up, I kind of want to start by showing off revision 2 of the PCB, and I decided to name the project the Boop Redoop after like Boop Reboot. I had a designer create a really simple logo that was inspired by the original weight of the board, and it came out really amazing. I also added the logo to both sides of the board, and it came out really cool looking. Especially when it's inside the polycarb case, it looks really awesome. The board mostly looks the same in terms of shape, but I did change some of the components around based on some of the issues that I found when I was going through Rev 1. The biggest change I made was the addition of the programming header. So it's kind of a small detail, but the last revision required me to solder on wires to flash the bootloader. And because I want to open source this, that wasn't very user friendly, so I knew that had to change. I also added a small Shaded Codes logo onto the board. I had reused my logo file from a previous smaller project without really thinking about it. And actually seeing how small it is in person is really funny, and so I got to make that larger the next go around. Now, while I would love to tell you everything worked just fine the first time, it really didn't. I mean, I would say it was about 90% of the board worked, which was a huge improvement from Rev 1, which didn't work really at all. And when I flashed the firmware, most of the matrix was working and the charging circuit was working just as I expected it to, but maybe you all caught that. I said most of the matrix was working. That was the odd issue to figure out, and but when I did find it out, fortunately it was just an issue with some ADC settings for my MCU, so that was 100% fixable with a small firmware change. So 1 line of code and it was done. Now the much larger issue was with the LEDs. So once again, they didn't really work out of the gate, and I was really confused as to why. I mean, you all saw in the first video, I got everything working, so why was it not working now? I'll just let Pat Shannon explain the issue.
The reason why the LEDs were not working is because I had incorrectly flipped one of the LEDs, and specifically it was the very first one in the chain. So after doing some bodge wiring, that is now working. So yeah, pretty stupid mistake, but pretty simple overall. The last issue I had to fix was between Rev 1 and 2 was the PCBs fit inside the case. It was actually a bigger miss this time. I got the alignment way off even more, and I had to do way more filing. So I did try to do some more scanning and things, but it really didn't seem to work for me when I did revision 2. So I did have another idea, and I'm gonna let Pat Shannon explain that as well. After enough Google searching and things, I think I've come up with not the perfect solution, but probably what's going to be the best solution that I've come up with. And it is, I'm going to take the original PCB and then, you know, my PCB. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace, and I should have probably done this from the beginning. I'm going to actually just trace the outline like on paper, and then I'm going to trace the outline of the other one on paper, and of mine on paper, and I'm going to compare them, and I'm going to try to make adjustments based on that using some rulers. So now I know you're probably going to ask, well, why didn't you actually do this in the beginning? Like, why wasn't this something you thought of before? And it was something I thought of before, but the problem really is like these PCBs, they don't lay flat. And that causes some like issues. So I think what I'm gonna do is, yeah, they can't lay flat because of some of the components on them. But I kind of want to compare them face by face and see how that works. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay them down as flat as I can, and then trace them and try to go about it that way.
And with that brilliant idea, I'm going to move on to the last thing I want to change, which is moving the power switch back to the top of the PCB. I moved it to the bottom in Rev 2, and I'm not really sure why, because it really doesn't make sense. So I had to move that back up. So now that I had really all those issues outlined between 1 and 2, it wasn't really that bad. I mean, there were really small changes that I needed to make, But while I made those changes and went ahead and ordered more PCBs, I did decide to go ahead and fully build the Rev 2 board. The only thing I didn't do for the board was actually put in stabilizers. This is actually a huge mistake I'll touch on a bit later, but it worked well enough for me to just enjoy the wireless version for a few days and really sort of see the vision start to come to life. After a few weeks, the Revision 3 boards came in, and this is what they look like. The purple silkscreen looks incredible, and for this run I paid a bit extra to get the NIG finish, so it has this little like gold accent to it as well, which is really, really cool. Once I got the boards, I just soldered on the MCU, flashed it, and the board was working really well. I mean, the entire matrix worked, the LEDs worked right from the jump. I had no issues at all with them. And the last thing was to fit the keyboard into the case, and that's where I had the biggest issue. The outline of it really wasn't accurate still, and I tried tweaking it, but at this point, I only had to file it a little bit to get it fixed, so I just don't want to spend any more energy trying to get it all together. But if you have any suggestions, please let me know. Because I was right in the high of everything working, I decided to go ahead and get everything all soldered on. So I got the hot swap sockets on, and I started putting the stabilizers on, and this is where I hit what I believe is probably the stupidest mistake I could have made on this entire project. And I know I've said that a few times, but I mean it for real this time. You see, the MCU and power switch was in a spot that blocked the spacebar stabilizer from laying flat. So I couldn't use it. So basically I can't have a stabilizer for my spacebar, and I have to use a much smaller key. And the only way to fix it is to do another revision where I move that MCU to a different position on the board. So not only was it kind of a really dumb mistake, but it's one that would have been completely avoided, because if you remember earlier, I told you how I built the full version of the Rev 2, but I just skipped the stabilizers because I didn't feel like putting them on. If I had done that, I would have known that the stabilizers didn't fit properly, and I would have known to fix it before I went ahead to order, $200 worth of PCBs. Just a lesson learned, like fully test everything, like fully test the entire fit before you kind of move on to ordering the third revision, especially when you were so close. Like if I had gotten that right, I wouldn't have to do another revision, and it would be perfect right now, and I'd be really excited. While I am excited, I'm still really like I should have been able to do that. I shouldn't have had this problem. So I don't know, that's something I definitely need to look into, but for now I kind of am just stuck using a much smaller spacebar. So at this point you're probably wondering, well, what's next for the board? And well, I do want to make those changes to the PCB. I mean, it kind of feels a little bit incomplete to me, but because of current political situations in the world, PCB orders have become drastically more expensive than when I started. Considering at this point I've spent about $616 on the PCBs alone, so that doesn't include the other parts like the MCUs or USB sockets, hot swap sockets, etc., etc. With all that in mind, it kind of is just really hard to look at that number and feel like it's worth spending more just to get a normalized spacebar out of the equation. Plus, this was supposed to be a quick project in between a revision on the app that I've been making, which you all can check out in the video above. But like all my quick projects, it sort of evolved into something much bigger, and I think it's kind of at a point where I just need to wrap it up for the sake of that original project and for the sake of all the other projects that I've thought of that I would like to work on next once these two are kind of wrapped up. So with that, I'm going to leave all the links for all the files for the PCB and firmware in the Substack post that's going to accompany this video. So in that post, I go over some of the things that I really didn't get to touch base on here. So like how I compiled a custom bootloader for the board, for example. So if you're interested in more details about the project, especially from the technical side, make sure you head over there and subscribe. The link's down in the description because there's a post to match every video. And again, I get to go into way more detail than I get to cover here. With all that being said, thank you all so much for coming. I really do appreciate you all taking the time to watch my video. If you're interested in any of the things I talked about, make sure you check out all those links down in the description to go check out a little bit more detail. And yeah, thank you all. I'll see you all in the next one. Remember, stay stupid.